Alright, stupid. Let's get this over with.
Number 4. Ferdinand Magellan, and many people afterwards, circumnavigated the Earth. That means he left headed west, continued going west, and came back to where he started, still going west. Actually, Magellan was dead, but one of his ships, led by Juan Sebastian Elcano, finished the journey. If you head west and circumnavigate the Earth yourself, you'll be able to tell because you'll observe one fewer sunrise than everyone who stays at home.
Wow. This one was so bad they had to dumb you down twice.
You keep saying that they had to dumb you down. I'm not sure what that means. I'm pretty sure you mean they had to dumb down the message, or they're treating you like a child. I'm guessing that's what you fucking mean. You say they had to dumb down the message only to demonstrate that you don't understand the message yourself. So even though the message was dumbed down for you, it was still too smart for you to understand.
He went west and continued heading west, did he? Well, as you can see on the left, that is Magellan on a globe Earth, how he went around. Of course, they didn't exactly show this on a globe. They kind of flattened it out themselves. As you can see on the right, I have taken the flat Earth model. And, you know, if the Panama Canal had would have been there, then it would have been much easier for him to head west and keep heading west. But as you can see, he had to go south and north and all kind of different directions because there's little things called continents in the way. And in a case, you can see how the same navigation on a flat Earth, generally speaking, I guess, heading west, Magellan and or the person who outlived him made it all the way around.
Sure. You know what? Why not? Let's, for a second, pretend that your flat Earth map is an accurate representation and can be used as a navigational tool. Now, let's plot out a couple of other trips. How about we plot out a trip from, let's say, Recife, Brazil to Lima, Peru. This trip is about 6 hours and 56 minutes, almost 7 hours. Now, a flight from Chicago O'Hare to Quito, Ecuador is about 7 hours and 9 minutes. So these are roughly the same trips, roughly the same distance, roughly the same time. And if we plot them out on a flat Earth map, you see that the lines are vastly different. Let's try another one. Let's take a trip from LA to Columbus, Ohio. Ready? Now, this trip is about 4 hours and 22 minutes. A trip from Perth to Brisbane is about 4 hours and 25 minutes. Again, roughly the same time, roughly the same distance. And once again, if I plot this out on the flat Earth map that you gave me to navigate, we see that these lines are vastly different from each other. From this alone, we can conclude that your map is bullshit. So, if you want to use it to pretend like Ferdinand Magellan circumnavigated the globe using your map, go right ahead. I'm going to use a map that accurately represents reality. A map that, when I measure distances on it, actually match the results instead of giving me this ridiculous bullshit.
And they had to dumb you down again at the end with, if you could drive around the Earth, or no, actually they tell you, head west and drive around the Earth. Again, if you couldn't circumnavigate it on water without heading different directions, how far do you expect to be able to drive?
See what I mean about you saying that they had to dumb you down and then failing to understand the dumbed down thing? They did not say drive west. This is what they said.
If you head west and circumnavigate the Earth yourself, you'll be able to tell because you'll observe one fewer sunrise than everyone who stays at home.
Now, they did show a cutesy picture of a car and a house, but that's not what they said. So, even though it was dumbed down for you, according to you, it was dumbed down for you, you still failed to understand what the meaning of the sentence was.
Number 3. The horizon. Ships on the ocean or tall Chicago buildings viewed over Lake Michigan disappear bottom first. And you can see the sunset twice if you watch it lying down and then quickly stand up. The simple fact is, if the Earth were flat, there wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear. So from across Lake Michigan, you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
Well, they really burned themselves in this one, as you are going to see. Let's take a look first at what they talked about. I'm not going to go back and show you, but let's just say we got into an elevator at sunset and rose up and got higher and higher, yes, we would see the sun again. Why? Because we know from calculators that as we go higher, the geometry allows us to see farther to the horizon, doesn't it? And that's exactly what happens. We get a vanishing point. And as you get higher and higher, you can see farther and farther out to the vanishing point.
By calculators, I assume you mean the equations that are used in trigonometry, assuming that the world is a sphere to measure the distance to the horizon. Are those the calculators you are talking about? Because as far as I can tell, there has never been an equation to tell us what the distance to the horizon should be on a flat plane. Mostly because there is no such thing as a distance to the horizon on a flat plane. That's actually impossible. You can't have that. And any attempt for you to come up with a consistent equation just ends in complete and utter failure. So instead, you have to come up with a different excuse, one that is far, far more hilarious.
That is, there is even a limit there, though. And the idea, let me back into this, what you're seeing on here, we would also see the Rocky Mountains from Michigan. Not only the Chicago skyline, but the Rocky Mountains. How ridiculous can you get? I mean, come on. We all know that you can only see so far. I don't care if it's flat, if you're up. You know, can you see the Rocky Mountains when you take off, let's say from the East Coast of the United States? Can you see the Rocky Mountains from there? You know, at some point, when you take off from Baltimore, Maryland, you are well in range to see the Appalachian Mountains, but you don't see them because they're too far away from your vantage point. You just can't, you simply can't see that far, whether it's flat or not. So we all know that argument is stupid. You have dirt, dust, debris, sand, salt, all kind of things that are in the air that obscure your vision to a certain point. Visibility at most is usually called at 25 miles in weather. You just simply cannot see clearly beyond that point.
2 points I want to make sure that everyone remembers that Mr. Thrive and Survive said here. That you cannot see an infinite distance because dirt, debris, sand, whatever gets in the way, limiting how far you can see. And this limit, according to Mr. Thrive and Survive, is around 25 miles. So remember, we cannot see infinitely because, I don't know, fog of war, and we can only see roughly 24 miles in good weather.
In any case, they really burned themselves with, we could see the Chicago skyline all the way from Michigan, across Lake Michigan. Really?
I'm going to stop you here to point out how much of a dickbag you are for misrepresenting what the video said. The video said the following.
There wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear, so from across Lake Michigan, you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
They did not say that you could see the Chicago skyline. They said you could see all of Chicago. And that word all is very, very important. And I know exactly why you don't want to use it, because it entirely contradicts what you are going to say in a little bit.
Well, we've done the math on that before. The entire skyline from Michigan, the entire skyline from Michigan should be below the horizon. All of it. None of it should stick up.
If you do the math, the tallest building, Willis Tower, should be about 56 feet below the horizon. So not a whole lot, and that's important because there are special situations which let you see part of the city, more specifically the top part of the city.
Let's take a look at what we got going on here. Look at this. Look at all these pictures. This is just a few of them, taken on different days from different places in Michigan, except for the last picture is actually taken from Indiana.
You know what the best part is about all the pictures that you have here? Is that you are demonstrating the exact same point that the video that you are trying to debunk made. It said that as you go further away from objects, they start disappearing bottom up. And as you can see, the closest picture, the one from Indiana, shows the most amount of the buildings. And yet the further you get away from it, the less that you see of the buildings, to the point where you can only see the very tops. So the pictures that you have brought up to debunk this idea are actually demonstrating the idea that the Earth is a globe.
And when you do the math on all of them, Chicago, the entire skyline should be obscured by the horizon. And they tried to say that it's a superior mirage in the first picture here. Remember that? That's how I got into flat Earth, actually. Now, do you see how you have all these high waves, choppy waves in some of these pictures? That is very indicative that a superior mirage is not even possible. That is high winds at the surface, which eliminates the possibility of a superior mirage.
You mean how we have choppy waves in all the pictures except for the one that is called a superior mirage? So the one picture that you point attention to, the one picture that you say got you into the flat earth movement, that this picture cannot be a superior mirage because all the other pictures have waves, except for the picture of the superior mirage. Fucking brilliant.
Superior mirage requires calm conditions from the surface all the way up to the point of wherever the inversion layer ends. And an inversion layer means instead of getting cooler as you go up, it gets warmer. And that is where sometimes you can see an inverted image or a blurry image, which may look doubled or stacked. Almost never straight up and never perfectly like you see here.
Or the picture is distorted, which you can see by taking an image of what the Chicago skyline should look like, lining up the tallest buildings, and seeing that they don't quite match up. Not just that, but you cannot see all of Chicago, just the very top of the tallest buildings. This is what we would expect on a globe Earth, where the bottom parts of the buildings are missing, and all you can see are the tops, and the tops are incredibly out of proportion because it's a mirage.
However, just give them, on a calm day, but not these windy days. And you have thousands of witnesses. In fact, there are many witnesses that have written me and say, Rich, we go down to the shoreline and see that almost any time it's a decent day. The Earth is flat, guys. They burned themselves so bad on this one. Didn't they even bother to look up that people see the Chicago skyline from Michigan and Indiana all the way across the lake all the time? So much for this one. Let's move on to the next one.
I don't give a fuck about your eyewitnesses, because you know what? There are eyewitnesses for every event imaginable. There are eyewitnesses for fucking Santa Claus. There are eyewitnesses for aliens. There are eyewitnesses for reptilians taking over the White House. Your eyewitnesses are worthless. So let's instead look at the pictures that we actually have. The one picture of which I am more or less certain about the distance at which it was taken is the picture you have here on the top left. This picture went so viral that there's actual news reports about it. We actually know where the picture was taken and how far away Chicago is from that place. The first thing that I want to point out about how far away Chicago is from the photographer is that the distance is 54 miles. And remember earlier how you told me that the furthest someone could see is about 24 miles. So already, You already fucking contradicted yourself. Because according to you, you can only see about 24 miles because fog and sand and dirt and smog and fucking whatnots. But, if it's the Chicago skyline at almost 60 miles away, oh no. That's cool. That is perfectly reasonable for you, right? Let's take a moment now to look at what you are trying to tell me with your fog of war, atmosphere's too thick because of dirt and grit and smog and whatever. Now, according to you, and you keep changing your mind on the distance, but according to you, if I am standing over here, there is a limited distance, whether it be 24 miles or 54 miles in case it happens to be Chicago. There is a limit to how far I can see. If I start moving up, for some odd reason that you have yet to explain, this fog of war peels back, letting me see further. Why I can see further, I don't know. Especially because I'd be looking through more fog than if I was at the ground. Because a straight line would be much shorter than a diagonal line. But for whatever reason, even though I'm seeing through more atmosphere, I can see further. To make this point even more complicated, I am wondering how I can see stars, the sun, and the moon. Because according to you, I can only see about 24 miles if I'm at the ground, I guess, on a good day. And yet I can see these objects that are very obviously not 24 miles away.
I'm taking it from slightly inside the Earth. The sun is 4,505 miles from the observer. If he was inside the Earth here, if he's on the surface, you have to subtract whatever this is. Folks, the people that say it's about 3,100 miles, that's going to be right.
So, at the very minimum, I should be able to see not 24 miles away or 54 miles away, but a staggering 3,100 miles away, because that is how far the sun is. At the very minimum, I have to be able to see that far, otherwise I would not be able to see the sun. Now, I'm not sure how far away the stars and the moon are, but I'm assuming that they're somewhere in the same range according to you. And that just creates the same problem where I need to be able to see 3,000 miles just to be able to see those objects. And this is a problem for you because the Rocky Mountains are less than 3,000 miles away from Chicago. So you should be able to see the Rocky Mountains behind Chicago. You should be able to see major cities from one another. You should be able to see Denver from Omaha. You should be able to see Hawaii from LA. You should be able to see all sorts of things, which we cannot, even though you tell me I should only be able to see 25 miles away, unless it's Chicago, in which case I can see 53 miles away or 54 miles away. Unless it's the sun, in which case I can see 3,000 miles away. None of your excuses for why I can't see that far actually match up with each other, which makes me think that you just pulled them out of your ass instead of actually sitting down and thinking about the implications of the model that you are trying to propose.
Oops, almost forgot. They were talking about ships over the horizon. I forgot about that. They disappear. Yeah, that's what started the whole thing with Aristotle. I forgot about that. Ships go over the horizon and they disappear. Haven't they heard or haven't they even looked to see that that's bogus? You have videos like this that go and show without a doubt that as long as you're not disingenuous and put the camera right on the waves, which will block anything in the distance, look at the geometry of that, will you? You will find that nothing ever goes over the horizon. Get out some binoculars, get out a telescope, after they have supposedly disappeared over the horizon, and as in zooming in with this camera here, you will find that magically the entire ship reappears. In fact, if any of it reappears after it has supposedly gone down over the horizon, shows that it's not a curved surface.
Not any part of the ship, just the bottom of the ship. If you can still see the bottom of the ship after it has gone over the horizon, then we do not live on a globe. If you can still see the top of a ship after it has gone over the horizon, that's to be expected. It's why when you have pictures of Chicago, you see the top of the buildings and not the bottom. Now, the point that you are making here is that if you zoom in enough, any object will reappear in its completeness, bottom to top. But in the images that you have shown us, you have shown that this is not actually the case. Look at all the images that you gave us of the city of Chicago. In none of them can you see the whole city. You can only see the top in many of the pictures, and most of the buildings are obscured. So if you really think that you can zoom in to make the whole image come into focus, then you are entirely contradicting yourself when you show pictures where that doesn't happen. On top of that, you have also given me this weird limit on how far I can actually see. So once again, you are just coming up with excuses so haphazardly that they don't even make a coherent narrative.
Number 2. During a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the Earth on the moon is curved.
Seriously? You want to go that far back and show in the same video another point that Aristotle made that was absolutely ridiculous? During a lunar eclipse, the curve on the moon is curved, which shows what? That the Earth is curved. What if the Earth was a circular flat disk? That's not the answer anyway. Look at the left here, the moon without the red quote-unquote shadow on it. Look at the first crescent. Is it curved? How about the next picture? Curved, curved. Now it starts to appear to straighten up as it gets to the middle. And then as we get into the second row on the left, curved, curved. And then, of course, we have the full moon. And then as it goes away on the other side, guess what? It starts curving away. Look at the first and last crescent and the ones next to them. Guys, none of that is caused by the Earth's shadow. None of it. So why is it curved?
Why do you even bother to show the video that you're trying to debunk? Because you obviously don't pay any attention. They said during an eclipse, not during the fucking phases of the moon, during an eclipse. There is a huge difference between these two events. The phases of the moon are not caused by the shadow of the Earth. It is caused by what part of the moon is reflecting sunlight. A lunar eclipse is caused by the shadow of the Earth. There is a difference, and you didn't even bother to look it up, did you? You are just the worst at paying attention. Why do you even bother to show the original video if you are just gonna make up whatever bullshit you want to talk about?
See, the logic doesn't make any sense at all. It really doesn't. Now, I want to point out something in this picture on the right, and I've seen this before, and this happens during certain phases of these quote-unquote blood moons. Look at the shadow here of the Earth, supposedly. Look at the line I just made. Does that look curved to you? We pointed that out in a video. People want to buy it, though. In any case, I still want to see somebody cast a red shadow. How do you cast a red shadow?
Fuck you. And you know why? It's because the video that you are trying to debunk told you that the Earth's shadow was round during an eclipse. In order for you to debunk this idea, you brought out a chart of the lunar phases, something that has nothing to do with the Earth's shadow. Then you move on to a blood moon, which is actually an eclipse, and you put a stupid line through it while completely ignoring the actual shape of the shadow. And then finally, you change gears entirely, and now you want, no, not want, you expect an answer for why there's a red shadow. You have done nothing to actually debunk what the original video was saying. All you have done is brought up stupid things like lunar phases, and then change the subject entirely, all so that you can avoid actually debunking anything while trying to sound smart to your audience.
You can cast red light, but you can't cast a red shadow. And here's the other thing that's very important in this one. Remember the umbra and penumbra, and the moon goes through the, penumbra first. And that is the dark shadow. Then as it really gets behind the earth, it goes into the umbra, and it turns red. Where is the penumbra on this thing? Where is the black part of the shadow? We go straight from no shadow at all to the umbra. In this case, there is no penumbra. How is that even possible? There's a lot of explaining that has to be done with eclipses. There really is a lot of explaining.
I'm going to skip this part of the video. Not because it's not fascinating to talk about eclipses, not because it's not awesome to talk about how a blood moon gets its red shade, but because you are throwing this out here as a red herring, and I'm not going to go for it. You want to talk about this because you know that this is something that your audience doesn't understand, so you can then pretend as if the rest of the scientific establishment or the scientific body doesn't understand this because you don't understand it and your audience doesn't understand it. The rest of us do, and since a blood moon has nothing to do with the original claim of the shape of the shadow on the moon during an eclipse, I'm just going to call you out on your bullshit and then move on to something more interesting.
And number 1, we know the Earth is round because we have photographic evidence.
How embarrassing. The number one reason is photographic evidence. Guys, this is the one that most proves that NASA is a liar, that no matter how they have their tea, it all shows how much of a lie it is. It really does. All right, let's take it for their word right now that this is photographic evidence, meaning a photo was taken of the Earth. However, we have a quote from NASA Jet Propulsion Lab website. All images of Earth are computer generated. Forget that. Supposedly there was one picture before that was an exception, the Apollo 17, the one that's on all the textbooks or in all the textbooks. It's the one that's the Windows background, a lot of different computers. It's even got the logo of NASA in the clouds, the shape of the clouds. All
right, stupid. This is something called pareidolia. It is when humans find meaningful shapes in randomness, pretty much. So this happens all the time. We see faces in trees. We see shapes in clouds. I don't know why you particularly feel like this one shape is important. Are they actually there? No, they're not actually there. We assign meaning to the randomness, and this is well understood. So this isn't any amount of proof that anything is there. It's just your brain playing tricks on you, but that actually implies that your brain works. Never mind.
So let's just say this is an actual photograph of the Earth. It makes NASA and science a lie because they say it's an oblate spheroid, correct? It's an oblate spheroid, which means it is flattened at the poles.
Oh, fucking A. This is a triangle. This is a triangle, and this is a triangle. Do you notice how they're not all identical to each other? Because the definition of a shape does not define its dimensions, just its shape. Which means that you can have an oblate spheroid that looks like this, or you can have an oblate spheroid that looks like this.
Not only that, but then we are told it's pear-shaped, and that slightly below the equator, it's larger than the rest of the Earth, with its oblate spheroid and bulging at just south of the equator. Why south of the equator it bulges more than at the equator? I have no idea. No one's ever asked the question.
Now, I'm actually going to skip your whole pear-shaped thing here because I want to make a whole video dedicated to it because it is so incredibly stupid. It is so incredibly dishonest how flat earthers, not just you, but many flat earthers have taken the words of Neil deGrasse Tyson out of context just to make this point. So I'm going to make a whole video showing how you're a lying piece of shit, showing how you like to take people out of context. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I'll deal with this part in another video.
Every day, a new series of Earth images, which are not photographs. People have lost the technology or the technologically different aspect of what is a photograph versus what is an image. It's a big difference. We don't have one photograph of the Earth admitted by NASA on their own Jet Propulsion Laboratory website. I've read it myself. Go find it yourself. People are going to say, provide a link. Do the work yourself.
No, bitch. You provide the link. You provide the source because it is you who is making the claim. I am not responsible for doing the research for you, you lazy fuck. And you know what? You're not a lazy fuck. You're a dishonest fuck. Because you are intentionally hiding the fact that you don't have a source. You are intentionally making a claim without backing it up because most of your audience is going to be about as lazy as you are and not look it up and just take your word on it. An honest person who would make such a extravagant claim would bother to back it up. But no, you are taking advantage of the naivete of your audience, the laziness of your audience, and honestly sometimes the downright ignorance of your audience, because you know they will not look this stuff up for themselves and they're just gonna believe you. You are a dishonest piece of shit.
They're taking the what are supposedly what we've always seen as supposed satellite images of the clouds above the Earth. They're taking those now, which they take about 12 times a day. Or they take much more than that, actually. But they're taking 12 of them this time. And they're going to strip them together and cut them out so it's in a nice little round globe. Sort of what they did when the funny thing happened on the way to the Earth with Apollo 11. And they're going to put them on a blue ball. Japan's been doing it now for a couple of years. You've seen those images, haven't you? As fake as the day is long, I'm telling you.
But according to you, NASA has already admitted that there are no real pictures and that they're all computer generated. So why are you complaining about the fact that they are doing this? How can you really complain about the fact that NASA is making fake pictures when they tell you that they are making fake pictures?
So, this supposed number one reason is the biggest piece of junk of them all. It really is. Because if it is a picture, it's a lie. And if it isn't a picture, it's a lie.
Well, doesn't that just sum up your attitude perfectly? You don't actually give a damn about whether the pictures are actual pictures or not. You will, no matter what pictures are presented to you, always claim that they are a lie. Because you would much rather hold on to your dogma of the Earth being flat than actually look at the evidence. Well, Mr. Thrive and Survive, it looks like we have reached the end of our journey together. And frankly, I'm disappointed. I thought you might actually give me something to debunk. But all you have shown me is that you don't know how to read. An ad hoc excuse that doesn't match reality. An argument from personal incredulity, plus an ad hoc explanation that doesn't match reality. A complete failure of your understanding of trigonometry. The fact that you don't know how to pay attention. Another ad hoc explanation that does not match reality. Yet another ad hoc explanation that does not match reality. A misinterpretation of the argument that's presented to you. Another misinterpretation of the argument that's presented to you. And an uncited source that apparently says that NASA has faked everything. What else should I expect from a slimy fuck like you?